Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into our time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
An episode of The Crime Club, going all the way back 76 years, January 23rd, 1947, an episode entitled Mr. Smith's Hat. And we thank you for being with us on this Monday, 23rd day of January. We have, 342 days remaining until we get to 2024. Georgetown College, first Roman Catholic college in the U.S., founded on this date in 1787. Elizabeth Blackwell awarded her MD by the Medical Institute of Geneva, New York, becoming the country's first female doctor. The first bridge over the Mississippi opened on this date in 1855 in what is now Mississippi, a crossing made today by the Father Lewis Hennepin Bridge. Charles Curtis of Kansas became the first Native American senator in 1907. In 1941, Charles Lindbergh testified the U.S. Congress recommended the U.S. negotiate a neutrality pact with Adolf Hitler. Casablanca released on this date in 1943, Humphrey Bogart, Ingrid Bergman. Australian and American forces finally defeated the Japanese army in Papua New Guinea on this date in 1943. This turning point in the Pacific War marked the beginning of the end of Japanese aggression. Duke Ellington played at Carnegie Hall in New York City for the first time on this date in 1943. In 1950 in Israel, the Knesset passed a resolution stating Jerusalem was the capital of Israel. The 24th Amendment to the Constitution, prohibiting the use of poll taxes in national elections, ratified in 1964, that the ultimate discrimination in elections. North Korea seized the Pueblo on this date in 1968, claiming the ship had violated their territorial waters while spying.
I do want very much to tell the people of the United States how much the crew of Pueblo and myself had faith in them for the entirety of our detention. I had people come to me and say on so many occasions that they never really appreciated how great it was to be an American until they had the misfortune to have been captured and stuck in a country that is completely devoid of humanity, truthfulness.
USS Pueblo Commander Lloyd Bucher. President Nixon announced on this date in 1973 a peace accord had been reached in Vietnam.
The following statement is being issued at this moment in Washington and Hanoi. At 12:30 Paris time today, January 23, 1973, the agreement on ending the war and restoring peace in Vietnam was initialed by Dr. Henry Kissinger on behalf of the United States and Special Advisor Lee Duc-Tho on behalf of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. The agreement will be formally signed by the parties participating in the Paris Conference on Vietnam on January 27, 1973, at the International Conference Center in Paris. The ceasefire will take effect at 2400 Greenwich Mean Time, January 27, 1973. The United States and the Democratic Republic of Vietnam express the hope that this agreement will ensure stable peace in Vietnam and contribute to the preservation of lasting peace in Indochina and Southeast Asia.
On this date in 1985, O.J. Simpson became the first Heisman Trophy winner elected to the Football Hall of Fame. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inducted its first members on this date in 1986. Chuck Berry, James Brown, Ray Charles, Fats Domino, the Everly Brothers, Buddy Holly, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Elvis Presley. Madeleine Albright became the first woman to serve as Secretary of State in 1997. 2002, American Taliban John Walker Lint returned to the U.S. in FBI custody. The final communication between Earth and the Pioneer 10 spacecraft on this date in 2003. And in 2018, a 7.9 earthquake occurred in the Gulf of Alaska. Sixth largest earthquake ever recorded in the U.S. Fortunately, no reports of significant damage or fatalities. A lot of passings of note on this date. Start with Irish brewer Arthur Guinness, also singer, social activist Paul Robeson, New York restaurateur Toots Shor, actor Jack Oakey, Vic Ames of the Ames Brothers, Salvador Dali, Nell Carter, Bob Keesh and Captain Kangaroo, the great Johnny Carson passing away on this date, Watergate figure E. Howard Hunt, fitness guru Jack LaLanne, also Bobby Freeman, Do You Wanna Dance and Hold My Hand? Hugh Masekela, big 1968 hit for him, Grazing in the Grass, host and interviewer Larry King, and passing away in 2021 on this date, Hal Holbrook. This is the birth date of statesman John Hancock, actor Randolph Scott, actor Dan Duryea, the very funny Ernie Kovacs, Millie from The Andy Griffith Show and Mayberry RFD, Arlene Golanka, country singer and songwriter Johnny Russell, Joe Dowell, who had a number one hit in 1961, Wooden Heart, actor Rutger Hauer, and Anita Pointer of the Pointer Sisters, who passed away last year at the age of 74. Birth dates on this date include Puerto Rican actress and dancer Chita Rivera, 90 years old today. Also jazz vibraphonist Gary Burton, 80. From Buck Rogers, Gil Gerard, 80 years old, a co-star in that series. You might not know, the little robot. The voice of that little robot was Mel Blanc. From MacGyver, Richard Dean Anderson, 73. Sully, Chelsea Sullenberger, the pilot. He is 72 years old today. From Cheap Trick, Robin Zander is 70 years old. From NYPD Blue, Gail O'Grady is 60. From CSI Special Victims Unit, Marissa Hargitay is 59. From Saved by the Bell and 90210, Tiffany Amber Thiessen, 49. Pro wrestling commentator and a fine pro wrestler before health took him out of it, Nigel McGuinness, 47. And from the Twilight Saga and Westworld, Julia Jones is 42. Those just a few of the people celebrating the 23rd day of January as their birthday. If this is your birthday...
Hi, we're the Four Freshmen, and we just want to say, Happy birthday to you!
We go back 76 years, January 23rd, 1947, an episode of The Crime Club, Mr. Smith's Hat. That's next on this Monday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station. Classic Radio Theater family, you know our friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of your life. He didn't stop by just creating the best pillow. He created the best bed sheets ever. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me because, you know, I'm working like 67 hours a day. Now, Mike's offering the best deal on his Giza Dreams bed sheets ever. You can get a set of Giza sheets for as low as $29.98. You'll never want to sleep on anything else once you slept on a set of Giza Dream sheets. A special offer for you right now. You can get a set of Giza sheets for as low as $29.98. Call 1-800-928-4715. Use the promo code Wyatt. Or go to MyPillow.com, use the promo code Wyatt. It's good on anything on the website. That number again, 1-800-928-4715. Use my promo code Wyatt. Thanks for tuning in to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, an episode of Mutual's Crime Club program going back 76 years, January 23rd, 1947, Mr. Smith's Hat.
Hello, I hope I haven't kept you waiting. Yes, this is the Crime Club. I'm the librarian. Mr. Smith's Hat. Yes, we have that Crime Club story for you. Come right over. Ah, you're here. Good. Take the easy chair by the window. Comfortable? The book is on this shelf. Here it is. Mr. Smith's Hat by Helen Riley. A very intriguing story of a finger that puts its print on death. Let's look at it under the reading lamp. It was a bad day for New York City, the worst in a 3-week period of early summer heat. And Inspector Christopher McKee was in his office at the Center Street Police Headquarters when the telephone rang.
Yes, Inspector McKee talking, homicide.
Yes, I was just going to talk to you about that.
What?
Homicide. How'd you like to meet a freshly made corpse?
Go ahead, mister.
Well, go to 1142 West 16th Street, Gilbert Shannon's apartment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not there now, but don't worry. You'll find me waiting for you.
What's your name?
Gilbert Shannon.
Well, I'll be... Of all the days to be hung up by a lunatic.
Yes, Inspector McKee.
Cassidy, get the local precinct for West 16th Street. I want them to check on a nut.
Yes, sir.
Hold a minute. Inspector McKee, homicide.
Inspector, my father's been killed. Murdered.
Mm-hmm. All right, lady, give me the facts. Name, place.
Gilbert Shannon, 1142 West 16th Street.
What's that?
1142 West 16th Street. I just found him lying on the floor in a pool of blood.
Your name, please.
Julie, will you please send someone over here right away, please? Please?
Yes. Cassidy.
Yes, Inspector.
Never mind calling the local precinct. Get the medical examiner and order my car. I'm going up to that place myself.
I walked in, Inspector. Dad never bothered to lock the door. He didn't believe he had anything worth stealing, except a lot of unpaid bills.
And empty whiskey bottles, Miss Shannon, all over the place.
We pleaded with him to give up this dingy apartment. Oliver and I begged him.
Who's Oliver?
My uncle, Inspector. Oliver Gold.
The utilities man?
Mm-hmm. Since my mother died 2 years ago, I've been living with him and Tamsin, his wife, in their big house on East 54th Street. They wanted Dad to stay there, too, but he was stubborn.
Why?
He didn't want charity. He wouldn't let anyone help him. Not even Santos Demora, his oldest friend. Not even me, his own daughter.
No, you seem to have enough money for liquor, Miss Shannon.
That wasn't very often. You see, Dad was a writer. Popular magazine stories. Sometimes he sold one. Then he...
Yeah, I know. Must have been pretty tough on you and your mother. Well, let's see what happened here. Gilbert Shannon was sitting at that desk, working, his back to the door, when someone came in and cracked him on the skull with a blunt instrument. Not once, but 6 times.
Please, Inspector.
I'm sorry. It was a vicious crime done by a vicious person. Someone who feared or hated your father.
But I don't know of anyone...
It was also someone your father trusted and was expecting.
What?
The blows were all on the back of the head. In other words, when Gilbert Shannon's killer opened that door, your father knew who it was. He didn't turn around, but kept right on working.
Inspector McKee, do you realize what you're saying?
I always do, Miss Shannon.
But it's crazy. Why, Dad's friends were the best in the world. They were always trying to do things for him. I can't think of
Know
one...
thine enemies, but beware of thy friends. A wise old saying, young lady. And in some cases of murder, I've known it to apply to relatives, too. Let's go.
Where are you taking me?
Home. I'd like to meet Oliver and Tamsin Galt and Santos Demora, and maybe a man who commits murder and then likes to play ghost.
Julie, I think you ought to go upstairs and lie down.
I don't feel like it, Tamsin.
But she is all right, Julie, my dear. It is no good for you to hear all this talk about murder.
Please, Santos.
Like Gilbert, she is so obstinate.
Inspector McKee, you haven't answered my question.
Your question, Mr. Galt?
About the newspapers.
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. What do you want me to do?
Keep this matter private.
Why?
My position, of course. I'm vice president of Eastern Utilities. I don't want a scandal.
What are you afraid of?
Gilbert Shannon was my brother-in-law. He was married to my sister.
You haven't answered my question, Mr. Galt.
I don't want his private life made public. It wasn't clean.
Oliver.
Well, Julie, let's face it. We've been ashamed of him for a long time, long before your mother died. Now, why should I be punished for his mistakes?
He never did anything to hurt you. He wouldn't even take your pity.
Now, there, Julie. Oliver didn't mean what he said.
Well, Inspector?
I make no promises. As an old-time citizen, I think it's bad business to interfere with the press.
But my reputation...
We'll worry about that later. Where were you this afternoon?
At my office.
Every minute?
Until 12:15. Then I had lunch, and after that... Now, look here, Inspector.
After lunch, Mr. Galt?
I went for a walk.
A long walk?
I was back at my office at 2:15.
Mm-hmm. Shannon was killed between 12:30 and 2.
Inspector McKee, if you're intimating that
How about you, Mrs. Galt? Where were you?
On Fifth Avenue, shopping.
Buy anything?
No.
Meet anyone?
No.
Inspector, I thought you said the murderer was a man.
Oh, did I? Never take a policeman literally, Miss Shannon, until he waves a pair of handcuffs.
Now, Mr. DeMora.
I was in Central Park all afternoon. For work, it was too hot. The weather.
You meet anyone?
Only the pigeons and the squirrels, Inspector.
Yes, and they can't talk.
Senor, it is quite useless to make up a case about us. Not one person in this room had a reason or a wish to dispose of Gilbert. You will prove nothing to the contrary.
Nice going. Certainly stick together. I hope you don't have to hang together.
Hello. One moment, please. For you, Inspector.
Oh, thank you. Yes? Yes, Cassidy. Where? Okay, put it through the lab. Oh? Good work. Have a check for type. Yes, I'll tell them. Bye. Well. Everything comes to him who waits.
What is it, Inspector?
A few things to worry about, Mrs. Galt. The murder weapon has been found. Would one of you like to guess?
I'm sick of this, Inspector. You have no right to make us all feel like
All
criminals.
right. It was a hammer. The postman took it out of a mailbox on Lower Fifth Avenue.
What?
Thompson?
Don't look at me. I didn't go below 50th Street.
But it is quite ridiculous. If one desired to conceal or dispose of a weapon...
Haste makes many mistakes. Now, Miss Shannon,
Are you going to wave the handcuffs, Inspector?
when you entered your father's apartment, did you go out again before I arrived?
No.
Well, somebody did. There was a fresh smear of lipstick on the inside doorknob. It'd make a wonderful fingerprint. Huh? No comments? All right. Miss Shannon, the district attorney has released your father's body for burial. You can make the arrangements.
Thank you. It's so awfully kind of you.
I'll be in touch with all of you, and don't try to leave town unless you're so hot you'd like to spend some time in the cooler. Well, Cassidy?
The funeral services should be starting any minute, sir.
Are they all here?
They are, Inspector, they are. In that first pew, Mr. Santos DeMora with Mr. Oliver Galt sitting next to him. Then it's Mrs. Galt and Julie Shannon.
Notice anything?
It's hating they are, Inspector McKee. The way they're rushing that poor fellow's body off the face of the earth.
Yes, I thought of that.
And him not dead more than a few hours. It ain't decent. That's what comes of having daylight saving time. If the time was normal now...
Who's that fellow sitting over there in the last pew with his hat on?
Who, sir?
Yeah.
Another Hayden. To be wearing a hat in the Lord's house. A hat that's so loud, it's loud enough for the racetrack and shabby enough for a funeral of its own. I told him to take it off.
Wait a minute. He seems to be sobbing.
Why, so he does. And all the time I've been taking him from an old, no-good vagrant. Inspector, do you think he might be...
Right. He's getting out. He's coming this way.
And sure I'll be the devil's own witness. He ain't sobbing. He's laughing. And in a church. And at a funeral, too. Now, see here,
Let me handle him, Cassidy. What's the idea?
Damon and Pythias, the spider and the fly. Who is less noble than man?
You tell me.
Nothing and no one. In the beginning there were serpents and vermin, and today they walk like men. Excuse me, I have an appointment with a nightmare.
Oh, it's crazy with the heat the poor fellow is. You should have let him go, Inspector. He might be dangerous.
Get after him, Cassidy.
Oh, sure.
Keep a tail on him. I want to know who he is and where he lives.
But we could have asked him, sir, when he was sitting
That's
here.
not all I want to know, Your Honor. Now get going and report to me at my office. I'll be there all evening. Inspector McKee talking homicide.
Cassidy talking, sir.
What'd you get?
Well, sir, I tailed that fellow to a broken-down tenement house on 10th Avenue. He's got a room on the 3rd floor.
Good. What about his name?
Believe it or not, Inspector, it's John Smith.
It's happened before. What else, Cassidy?
Well, sir, Smith stayed indoors for about an hour and a half. And when he emerged, it was only to lock himself up in a phone booth in the corner drugstore.
Did you find out whom he called?
I couldn't, sir, but I know he made 2 calls, Inspector.
Yes?
It was on the second one that I was able to catch a few words.
What were they, Cassidy?
Well, sir, there must have been an argument, because all of a sudden Smith's voice went up, and he said, "You be there in half an hour and don't keep me waiting." And that's all.
Is it? Did Mr. Smith go to sleep in that booth?
Oh, no, sir. He came out and walked straight uptown to Central Park. And that, Inspector, is where it happened.
What? What happened?
Well, sir, he was walking along a path near the 59th Street Lake with me about 50 feet behind him.
Yes.
Something was wrong with the park lights, because a whole row of them was out. And then...
No, go on, Cassidy.
Well, sir, it was pretty dark, but I could see that hat. It shone like a beacon light on a dark and empty ocean.
Never mind the poetry. Give me the facts to the point.
Yes, sir.
Well, just before he turned off the path onto another one, he took off his hat.
Yes.
Inspector McKee, I've been a member of the force for 32 years. I could retire and take my pension and live the good life of a peaceful man, but I haven't done it. Instead, I have chosen to stay in the service of the department and devote myself entirely to...
Oh, no, you lost him.
I couldn't help it, sir. He took off his hat.
But
if the park department had fixed those lights at the proper time...
He was going to meet somebody and you lost him.
I'm sorry, Inspector. I'm a broken-hearted
We
man.
could have broken this case tonight, closed the books on it. Oh, well, have you had something to eat?
No, sir.
We'll get something and then come back here to my office. We'll have a good cry together.
Hello, Thompson.
Oh, Sanders, what are you doing here?
I came in for a lonely drink. I saw you sitting at this table. I am delighted.
Oliver took Julie and me home after the funeral, and then he went out to keep an appointment. Julie went to bed.
I am glad they deserted you, Thompson, darling. It gives me an opportunity.
Sanders, please.
But I am only holding your hand. Is it forbidden?
Yes. We never know who might be looking.
Well, let them look. Do I care?
Well, I do.
Thompson.
Stop making a fool of yourself and leave me alone.
It has not always been like this.
It is now. I'm not ready to lose, Oliver.
Lose? You do not lose something you do not want.
That's how I feel about you, Sanders.
I do not like to hear such talk. Yesterday it was different. You could not stand to live with Oliver.
I've changed my mind. And if you were a good sport...
No, I am not a good sport when there is no good reason.
Why didn't you tell me that you haven't got a penny to your name?
Is it important?
Well, shouldn't it be?
An offshoot of the Crime Club imprint of Doubleday, January 23rd, 1947, the Crime Club, here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. The news of this date, going back 76 years, follows these important words here from your favorite radio station. Thanks for spending part of your Monday with us here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, an episode of Mutual's Crime Club, as it was originally broadcast on Thursday, January 23rd, 1947. In the newspapers of that Thursday 76 years ago, these were some of the headlines. All Georgia revenue collections and the operation of the state's highway department have been tied up by the dispute over the governorship. That, according to State Treasurer George P. Hamilton. Hamilton, who receives the tax collections from the Revenue Department and pays out warrants for its operation, and who receives all federal funds allotted to the Georgia Highway Department, said difficulties over bonding of key officials raised legal obstacles to his recognition of appointees named by Herman Talmadge. Rival administrations appointed to both the State Revenue Commission and to the State Highway Commission by Talmadge, who was elected governor by the legislature, and by M.E. Thompson, who claims to be acting governor in succession to the resigned governor Ellis Arnall. In the Highway Department, Hamilton said the Talmadge-appointed treasurer has not been confirmed by the state Senate, and hence transfer of bond from the previous treasurer is illegal. In the Revenue Department, Georgia law requires bond of the commission to be appointed by the Attorney General. Bond of $70,000 posted by Talmadge-appointed Charles Redwine lacks the approval of the Attorney General, who refuses to recognize Talmadge as governor and who has already given approval to the bond of Thompson-appointed Stonewall Dyer. Alice Dean Devine today met and exonerated Earl Sheldon, the San Francisco ex-convict and studio operator, in her kidnapping, and her search was redoubled for a smooth-talking middle-aged man who held her for a day and demanded $10,000 ransom. The pretty and popular 17-year-old Lodi, California high school student confronted Shelton, saying, "This is not the man." Her mother, Mrs. John Edward Devine, who said she had seen the man who had sent for Alice Dean to have her picture taken Monday night when the girl disappeared, joined in exonerating Shelton. Legislation to raise salary limits for veterans participating in the government's on-the-job program, introduced by Florida Democrat Senator Pepper. He also proposed amendments to the GI Bill of Rights, which would extend the time veterans may receive educational benefits, and which would, in some cases, permit the government to subsidize courses for 9 years. monthly educational subsistence payments would also be boosted in Pepper's bill. Al Capone continued to show such improvement today that his physician said it was no longer an emergency and the family could leave if it desired. After a morning visit to the ex-mobster's Palm Island villa, where Capone suffered an apoplectic stroke on Tuesday, the physician said barring unforeseen complications, Capone should recover. The FBI announced today the arrest of 7 men in New York City and Columbus, South Carolina, on charges of conspiring to bribe a War Assets Administration official. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover said the men tried to bribe the WAA official at Columbia to give them preferential attention in the purchase of nearly $1 million of steel and women and men's clothing. Attorney General Clark today announced the indictment of former Congressman Andrew J. May, the Democrat of Kentucky, and 3 officials on a wartime munition combine charges of conspiring to defraud the government. Civil Aeronautics Administration Administrator T.P. Wright contends that civilian airlines should accept more responsibility for preventing plane crashes. This would take some of the load off the government. His views were presented to the House Commerce Committee investigating the cause of air disasters. Mrs. Franklin D. Roosevelt said today progress has been made in the fight against infantile paralysis and that the day the disease will be stopped surely is a little closer. The widow of the late president, who founded the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis, asked people in a radio broadcast to give 2 dimes instead of 1 in the 1947 March of Dimes campaign. Those are a few of the day's top news stories as reported in the newspapers of Thursday, January 23rd, 1947. On your radio, The Crime Club. The conclusion next. Coming up on this Monday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station. Our friend Jimmy in Boston will be excited tomorrow on our Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox program, as we have an episode of My Friend Irma from 74 years ago, January 24th, 1949. Mrs. Rhinelander is depressed. Irma thinks the Rhinelanders are broke, which isn't going to be the case. That's coming up on Tuesday's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. But now the conclusion of The Crime Club, 76 years ago, January 23rd, 1947.
Would you have me divorce Oliver for a marriage without money? At your age?
I see. You would rather be with a man you do not love
He
than
isn't impossible, Santos.
a fish.
With gold fins.
When did you find this out about me?
Last night at dinner. Oliver mentioned that your business was on the rocks and that you were going into bankruptcy.
And immediately love flew out the window.
I like my daily bread. And butter.
You cannot do this to me when I have lost everything. It's unbearable.
Oh, stop it, Casanova. Don't you know when you're licked?
Julie.
Why, Santos, I'm surprised at you. The lady wants to be with her husband, and you keep...
What are you doing in this place, Julie? I thought you were home in bed.
Did my father know about you, too?
Gilbert?
Don't answer that. I think he did. And he was killed for knowing too much. Am I right, Tamsin?
You're completely out of your mind.
You were afraid that Dad might tell Oliver about you and Santos. That would have cost you a good home plus a lot of money.
Julie, you are not making sense. Tamsin could not kill
Stop
him.
being so loyal, Romeo. She just tore the balcony down.
I'm going home.
A good place for you, Tamsin. Maybe you can find the hammer that used to be in that second-floor closet.
What?
I looked for it tonight. It wasn't there.
You might ask one of the servants about that.
Shall I ask one of the servants about my lipstick, too?
Look here, Julie. I've had enough of your nasty little insinuations. If anyone had a motive for killing your father, you did. He made your life miserable, and he destroyed your mother's. He killed her.
Tamsin?
You know how she died. She didn't fall in front of that subway train. She threw herself.
No.
And the next time you feel like accusing someone of murder, think of the consequences. All of them. Good night.
It is true, unfortunately, Julie. Gilbert was my oldest friend, but sometimes even I did not understand it. Come, I will take you home to Oliver's house.
Yes, 2 reservations on the midnight plane. Splendid. Mrs. Galton, I'll pick them up at 11:45. Thank you.
Really?
Tamsin, I didn't hear you come in.
Where are we going on such short notice?
Mexico.
Why?
The newspapers have got hold of Gilbert's case. By tomorrow morning, all the filth in that man's life will become public gossip, and I don't want to face it.
Of course. But why must we go tonight?
Because I decided. Now let's pack. We've very little time.
I can't go, Oliver.
What? Now look here,
Now,
Tamsin.
please listen to me. I can't leave Julie. She needs me.
Oh, she'll get along.
You don't know how she carried on tonight after you went out. It wouldn't be fair to desert her at a time like this.
But I... Oh, well, all right. I'll phone the airport for another reservation.
No, Oliver. Julie needs time to organize herself. She's had a terrible shock. Why don't you go alone, and we'll join you in a few days?
Well...
You won't have to face the publicity, and I'll have a chance to help Julie.
Yes, very well. I can wait for you at the Continental Hotel in Mexico City, and from there we can go on to... That's a good idea, Tamsin. Will you phone the airport and cancel your reservation while I go upstairs and pack?
Of course, darling. Hello? Police headquarters? Inspector McKee, please. Inspector McKee? This is Tamsin Galt. I came home a few minutes ago, and I found that my husband has disappeared. Yes. 2 of his suitcases are gone. Well, I phoned the airport, and I was told that he'd made a reservation on the midnight plane for him and me. Well, I don't know why he included me, but... No, I didn't cancel it. I didn't want Oliver to become suspicious. Yes. You're quite welcome. Goodbye.
Tamsin, you just made a serious blunder.
Oliver.
You should have called the airport first. Now Inspector McKee will know that you were lying.
Oliver, put down that candlestick.
It was all worked out in your precious little mind, wasn't it? Julie needed care, loving care.
I didn't mean it, Oliver. I'll call the inspector. I'll tell him...
It's too late, Tamsin. Would you like to know how much I really loved you?
Oliver, please give me a chance.
As much as I hate you now.
He won't kill me. Somebody's listening on this phone now. Oliver, no.
Yes, Tamsin.
No. Yeah.
Hello? Hello?
I'm tired, Cassidy. It's been a long day.
Sure, but wouldn't you be feeling good enough now to eat that sandwich I bought you for your good appetite?
Oliver Galt, big utilities man, making a getaway. Every day a new surprise.
Won't he be getting one when he finds the airport's loaded down with cops?
Yes? Mm-hmm. You don't say. Are you sure? You gotta be sure. Okay.
What's the trouble, sir, if you don't mind me asking?
Those fingerprints we found on the doorknob of Shannon's apartment, Cassidy.
They ain't good.
They belong to a John Ravillo.
I don't recall no such name, sir.
The San Diego confidence man arrested 21 years ago, broke jail 6 months later, was never found.
Well, that sort of changes the picture, don't it? Ravillo. Could that be a Spanish name?
I don't know.
On the other hand, it's possible that a fellow who calls himself John Smith and laughs at the church funeral might...
Yeah, anything's possible now. Inspector McKee, homicide. Cassidy, Trace.
Yes, sir.
What's the joke, mister?
We meet again, Inspector, and again it's bad news.
Tell me about it.
You know who this is?
A ghost of Gilbert Shannon.
A toast to the wise. Death begets death. And when it's murder, there can be no end except in death.
What's that?
It's happened again. But now it's a beautiful lady. Young, charming.
Who was it?
Tamsin Galt. What? A horror of horrors to be snuffed out in the prime of life.
Now listen, you, if this is a gag, I want to...
Goodbye, Inspector. I assume your next stop will be the Galt Mansion on East 54th Street, which is now a tomb.
Cassidy.
I was on my way, Inspector. That call was made from a booth near the guardhouse.
Never mind that. Pick up Smith and hold him here until I get back, if I ever do. Let's keep talking to Shannon. I've got work to do.
Well, I didn't know what had happened until he came to the house, Inspector McKee. Santos Demora brought me home, and I went straight up to my room.
Where'd he go?
He left me at the front door, Inspector.
Well, all right. I'm satisfied. I think we'll wrap up this candle holder now. The fingerprints on it should tell us who struck the first blow.
The first?
Yes. Tamsin Galt was not killed by a blow on the head. She was smothered to death.
Good heavens.
By someone who held her nose and mouth while she was unconscious.
But how can you tell?
Those swollen veins in her neck and the color of her face.
How dreadful. But who?
Anybody. It didn't require courage or strength.
I see. What about Oliver?
Huh? Why do you mention him?
He might have found out that Santos and Tamsin were... Well...
Oh, one of those things, huh? Did your father know about them, too?
He must have. The hammer he was killed with was taken out of this house.
Well, thank you. Why didn't you talk about it sooner?
I didn't know until a few minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the second floor closet to look for something, and I found that...
We're having company.
Jackson. That's Oliver.
Perfect. Meet him in the hall and don't tell him what happened.
Don't?
Go ahead and do as I say.
All right, Inspector.
And leave that door open. I want to hear everything.
Oliver?
Julie, I'm just going upstairs. Where's Tamsin?
Oh, she's indisposed.
Indisposed? I just don't understand that woman. An hour ago, she wanted to fly to Mexico tonight.
Mexico? What are you talking about?
I rushed down to my office to get these papers. I thought I'd combine pleasure with business, and now... is she upstairs?
No, Mr. Gold.
What?
She's waiting for you in the living room.
Inspector McKee.
Would you like to see her? Of course you would. Now, come on. After you've had a good look, we'll take a trip downtown to police headquarters, and you too, Miss Shannon.
If you like.
I like. And while we're driving, we'll pick up Mr. Demora and give him a lift, too.
Santos? But why?
Your alibi, Miss Shannon. And to you, Mr. Gold, a mathematical problem. The outside angle of a triangle.
Excuse me, Inspector.
What is it, Cassidy?
I just got the report on this candle holder. No fingerprints. It was wiped clean.
All right. Stay here with Smith. I'm going into the next room to pin down a murderer.
Inspector, I'd appreciate a drink if you have one.
Great. Give him one, Cassidy, from that water cooler.
No, not that. I need something.
Well, Inspector McKee, are you ready for us?
For one of you, Miss Shannon, an escaped convict by the name of John Ravillo. What's the matter? You struck down? What about it, Mr. Demora? Would you like to enlighten me?
I have never heard of the gentleman.
How about you, Mr. Galt?
I don't know him. I don't recall ever having met him.
Well, then, suppose I give you people an assist. Here's an ink pad. We'll take some fingerprints. Who'll be the first volunteer? You, Mr. Galt? Well?
All right. I'm John Ravillo.
Oliver.
But I didn't commit murder. You yourself told me that Tamsin was smothered.
But you made it possible by cracking her skull.
I had no choice. We quarreled. She flew into a temper and picked up a knife.
You can do better than that. But first, what about Gilbert Shannon?
I thought he was blackmailing me. He was the only one who knew my real identity. I went to his apartment this afternoon for a showdown.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't tell you that because Gilbert was already dead when I found him. I was afraid. My criminal record, you know.
I know. But I also know that Shannon was not blackmailing you.
What?
Just a minute. Smith, come in here.
When the law beckons.
And put your hat on.
Spoken like an old friend.
That's the man. I paid him the money.
Paid? You paid me?
It's all right, Smith. You can relax.
But I told you, Inspector, I was the bait the spider used to lure the fly in. And when I saw them today in church, sitting side by side like Damon and Pythias,
Inspector McKee.
Huh? What is it, Mr. Demora?
Could I have a glass of water, please?
Sure. But first, give me what you have in your hand.
You have no right to...
We'll talk about that some other time. Pills, huh? Poison. Sit down, Mr. Demora. It's your turn to talk now about a double murder, and no double talk, if you know what I mean.
I just can't believe it. Santos Demora, of all people.
Your father's oldest friend. Know thine enemies, but beware of thy friends.
And Oliver, an escaped convict. Well, I knew that Dad had met Oliver in San Diego.
He didn't meet him, Miss Shannon. He helped put him in jail. Your father was one of those energetic newspaper reporters who liked to play detective, too.
But Dad married Oliver's sister.
It's one of those things you never understand. Got the whole story from Smith. He was Gilbert Shannon's editor.
Then he knew.
Yes, but liquor and hard luck put a cloud on his mind. So when he met Oliver Galt after 20 years, he didn't recognize him as John Ravillo.
And he collected the blackmail money and turned it over to Santos Demora.
For a whiskey pittance. Smith had to have whiskey.
Inspector, how did Santos find out about Oliver?
Demora told me he got it from your father during a moment of whiskey weakness.
But why did he kill him?
For protection. Your father was the only one who knew Oliver's past. But Demora was blackmailing him.
But why did he kill Tamsin?
Oh, to frame you, my dear, for both murders.
What?
You quarreled with Tamsin in a restaurant. Demora was present.
He told you about that, too?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's very clever, I must say. How did he get into the house? I left him at the front door.
He unlatched it while you were saying good night.
Oh. Well, that explains everything.
Just about.
Calling Inspector McKee. Calling Inspector McKee.
Oh, what now? Another murder? What is it?
Excuse me, sir. This is Cassidy.
Mm.
There's a question that's playing on my mind, and if you'd be good enough to answer it.
Sure. Anything to go home and go to bed.
Well, sir, it's about them telephone calls that Smith made to your office about them murders. Why did he do it?
An old newspaper man and a lunatic. He couldn't resist a scoop.
But how could he know about them, Inspector?
Very simple, Cassidy. He was in the right place at the wrong time.
Yes, but I...
Good night, Cassidy. Stop worrying about trifles. The case is closed.
And so closes tonight's Crime Club book, Mr. Smith's Hat, based on a story by Helen Riley. Stedman Coles did the radio adaptation. Roger Bauer produced and directed. Inspector McKee was played by Raymond Edward Johnson, and Julie by Elaine Kent. The cast included William Podmore, Eleanor Phelps, Paul Hammond, Sherling Oliver, and Barry Thompson. Oh, I beg your pardon. Hello? I hope I haven't kept you waiting. Yes, this is the Crime Club. I'm the librarian. Yes, come over a week from tonight. Good. We have a very unusual story of a charity ball at which the principal gift was death. It's called Murder Goes Astray by M.V. Heberden. In the meantime, there is a new Crime Club book available this week and every week at bookstores everywhere. Yes, it's available now. Fine. And we look for you next week. And by the way, the next time you sit down to enjoy a good show, think of the 1.5 million men who are trying to win the peace throughout the world. And yes, think of the 199,000 who helped win the war and are still in the hospitals. They like a good show, too. So keep them going with good USO entertainment. They still need USO, and USO is you.
From 76 years ago, January 23rd, 1947, the Crime Club here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thanks for making us a part of your day on this Monday. Thank this station, support their advertisers. Their kindness and courtesy allow us to be with you each and every time we roll around. Miss a day, you don't have to miss a show. Our webpage, classicradio.stream. Stream our shows. Learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. You can contact me there, find our social media links. You can even buy me a copy to show your appreciation. That Buy Me a Coffee money goes toward us acquiring additional classic radio collections and keeping our distribution channels open. That's the Buy Me a Coffee function at classicradio.stream. Have a great Monday. Tell all your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station.